So John Maxwell talks about leading leaders and also the law of the legacy. And this is where things kind of culminate together as leaders. And we have to ask that question, well, how do we do that? So there are two parts that we're going to talk about. So the first part is our job as a leader. Our first job, perhaps, as a leader is to find our replacement. And what do we mean by that? Am I working myself out of a job? And I'm saying yes. The true answer is yes. We're going to do this for multiple reasons. Number one, I'm going to, I need to find somebody who's going to replace me so that number one, I can promote, right? I can go somewhere else. Number two, I can do more because if another person is becoming more like me, developing into that management role, they're going to grow and develop. And so I can delegate more to them. And then number three, when the time comes that I need to do more, I need to have those projects where I need to get more people doing more things with more projects, I can put more responsibility onto other people. That's what growth is, that concept that John Maxwell shares about leading leaders is really about how do I help other people become leaders. Now, this goes into a number of cases that I've had. So my most recent one, Heather she was phenomenal, right? 6 years ago, I asked her, so what do you want to do? Like, I'm not sure. A little bit later, she's like, no, I want to be in management. I warned her, I said, look, management is great, but you're not going to be the same. You won't be the same person. She's like, okay, I'm ready for it. I said, okay, that's fine. But by knowing that she wants to be a manager, I could say, okay, buckle up, here we go. Not the first time that I've done this with someone, but then I could know what to tell her in advance. By letting her know you won't be the same person, but here's some other caveats. Here's what's coming. I'm not trying to talk her out of it, but along the way, I could let her know it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a great ride, but understand a few things. Number one, you're going to be stretched. Number two, you're not going to like me at some of these times because number three, I'm going to give you projects that are going to go beyond where you're at today. They're going to take you from where you're at to where you need to get to. And that means I'm going to give you projects that are bigger than what you are. They're going to be more than what you can do, and they're going to be far more than what you can take on. But you're going to do it anyway. So how do I do this? Number one, when I take a look at me as a leader, right? So if I'm up here as a leader, then the question becomes, who do I look for? Well, within your team down below, right, you start to say, well, do I cherry pick? Do I pick everybody down there? Does everybody get a fair chance? No, it's not that everybody gets a fair chance. Now, you can offer it to whomever, but you really need to identify, comes down to what? What do you want? This gets down to our conversation on competencies. Within the competencies of a leader, you're really starting to identify what are those core values that you need to have done. What are those core values of being part of the organization? Every organization is a little different. So what are those core values that a person needs to emulate? Who has the raw nature and where are they at today versus where they need to get to? You need to define what standards need to be developed within these core functions. You start to take a look at the functional competencies as a manager. And at this point, you can start to say, all right, so who am I looking at to help, to succeed me? Then within their professional development process, you can say, let's start to develop these core functions. What that means is that I need to start building these in now. It takes time to develop. It takes time to learn those things. Waiting until they get to the position to learn it is just putting them behind once they get into that position. If I can understand, number one, what are the core values? What are the core competencies? I can start to coach, mentor, guide in those areas. If we start to understand what the functional competencies are to be an effective manager or leader, then I can start to do certain things. For example, I can start to put together what's called an IDP, an individual development plan. We've mentioned this in the past, but where this goes is that annually, it's typically an annual process, but annually I can have a one-on-one with my employee to say, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Where's that you're headed to so that we lay this out on paper or computer, wherever you're at, and say, all right, what are your goals? Now, typically you're going to have some personal goals. They may get very, very personal, but they may have some personal goals of what do they want to accomplish. And you're going to have some professional goals. Within the personal goals, that's up to them. They can do whatever they want. They can say whatever they want or say nothing. It really doesn't matter. But within the professional goals, this is where you really get into the heart of it. If they want to be a part of the development game and move into this position, this is where you can give some guidance to say, I need you to take this class. I need you to take on this assignment. We're going to give you a special project. Well, these special projects, this special assignment, this training is all geared to help develop these functional competencies. Again, it won't happen overnight. However, as we develop these pieces, these parts, time over time, then what we know is that over the course of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, then we start to stack up these functional competencies to the point where they become prepared. Now, along with these competencies comes regular coaching. This requires an ongoing relationship between you and your mentee. It is truly a mentorship process where you need to identify what are their needs, what are their desires, what are their goals, and how can you help them to achieve their goals and objectives. It's a two-way street. This is the difference between managing them or even just straight on leading them. The coaching process is different. Coaching is one where you're not giving them the answers. The answers lie within them. They have the answers to their own questions. Your job as the coach is to ask better questions. And so now, are they leading questions? Oh, you betcha they are. As you ask them the right questions, ideally, they're going to come up with the better answers, in which case they're going to come to the next point and they're going to start asking better questions. The guidance is that they're going to continue to develop these core competencies so that when you are ready to advance, move on, do something, they'll be ready for that job. Now, what happens if you develop them and they move into a different position? That's not you. Or they move on somewhere else, they move on. What happens then is in the meantime, as you're developing them, you're going to give them more tasks. You'll give them more responsibility. You'll give them more opportunity to grow and develop. Well, that just means that you're getting more done. You're able to have a greater talent pool while they're here with you. The objective then is that as they grow, you give them more, strengthen them, grow them, stretch them. You'll prosper as they prosper. But that's the key to this whole thing. As they grow, you need to be sure to feed them, nourish them, and guide them so that when the time comes, we're ready to step in. So with Heather, what happened? Well, over the first 4 years, it was a constant giving, pushing, and she grew fast. But then comes about the time of the pandemic, and we'd gotten to a right-sizing situation, and my HR staff was a little thick. We have these ratios that we use about how many employees to how many people on the HR staff. Well, I wasn't going to let them go. They did all the work. So what I decided to do is I'm going to go part-time. I went to 2/3, got our numbers about right. I said, you know what? We're going to make this more tactical. That's what the organization needed. And it's time to move her into an HR manager role. And we did. And so with her 4 years of work, she was able to be ready, stepped right in. We shifted the role. She was good to go, hit the ground running, doing an amazing job. Freed me up. I'm still their their director of workforce development, still working on that. I consult. I do these. I'm able to do more by doing less for them. She's able to step in and be the HR manager that she was meant to be. That's how this whole thing works. So again, your job, your number one job as you lead leaders is to help them to be successful. But your law of legacy is by helping other people become you. And as you do, you'll see more of you. So good luck. Follow the model and help others to be successful.